Gentlemen, welcome to episode 4 of the Men of God podcast, featuring our very special guest, Mr. I know your last name, I'm not going to hold you, but from Philly.
Philly from Philly.
Hey,
Sir, this is one of our campus ministers from Every Nation campus. He brought me to ENC, brought Tim to ENC, brought a lot of us to ENC. So, tell us a little bit about you.
man, I am born and raised right outside of here, right outside of Philly, and went to Drexel, studied mechanical engineering, and been kind of left to the side. Been doing um, campus ministry for the past 5 years, and just got married back in May. So I had a Corona wedding. The whole
Yes,
thing was
sir.
canceled. Had to
Go.
cut it down, 200 people, 13 people, and it's kind of like an elementary school birthday party. It's like it's all family, and you're allowed to have one friend. So it
That's
was
tough.
it was it was really special, man. Really tight knit time, and so they've just been adjusting to married life together. And my wife just started residency as a pediatrician, so so she's working with kiddos all day, and I get to hold down, man, to cook for her, get to make sure she's in a healthy spot, get to love her with all my heart, and just be a husband now. It's awesome.
That's what's up, man. You cooking?
Dude, I'm cooking. Oh, I already cooked for myself. I did a lot. So now I cook like
That's what's up. That's what's
Feel
up.
that?
Well, we're gonna go ahead and get started. So, first topic of the day. John, do you want to introduce us to the double standards topic real quick?
Yeah, I got you. All right. So basically, right, through my days of scrolling through Twitter, I've seen a very lackluster of double standards happening. At first, he started with the obvious. If y'all heard about the Jada and Will situation, which is wild. Um, and other people pointed out before I even noticed it, but someone's like, yeah, if it was a 41-year-old guy who was preying on a 20-year-old female who's going through a woman, I should say, who's going through a really dark time in her life, the competitor, and he would definitely not be having all this defense that Jada's getting for her situation, or calling August, he was a grown man at the time. That would definitely not have been a conversation at all. And I'm like, when does it become a thing where we just absolve them from being held accountable as much as we're being held accountable to this day? And I feel that's really a problem that needs to be spoken about. That's just a brief introduction of that.
Yeah, I mean, Billy, you're the one who's married, so I don't know if you've experienced this just with like women, but how does that? Are there any double standards that you've come across in your time, like either dating or courting or eventually being in a relationship?
yeah, man. I think I was kind of thinking about this earlier. Is that like we want to be treated fairly, and that requires equity. Like that we feel like the rules of the game aren't rigged on us, and so for so long, like guys, we've just been trying to be, if you're trying to do it right, you're trying to be honorable, and you want to treat a woman with respect. You want to love her well, with kindness, even if she's just a friend. Take her thoughts and emotions into account. Um, so yeah, man, that's just not always reciprocated, and I think that that's something that we as guys, you know, we're different. We're different than women, so it's like we want to be treated the same, but fundamentally we're different. And so it's kind of this tension that we walk in is that, Jada and Will are different, but in our world, we're told that we're the same. And so they're definitely being held to a different standard. I mean, without a doubt, he would have gotten Me Too if that had happened. And
Hmm.
either way, whether he does it or she does it, I still think is wrong. Like she definitely took advantage of a young guy in, what's it called, in a rough spot. So, yeah, man, I think we have double standards baked into a lot of things. And the more we can just define our expectations and communicate what we really want out of something, then we can feel like we're not getting slighted. Like, hey, I really enjoy having you as a friend. I'd love to get to know you more as like more than a friend. Well, then it's clear that we know what the standard is. But I feel like we feel slighted when we don't define what the standard is, and then now all of a sudden you're not treating me the way I thought, but we never even talked about it.
Yeah, I feel that. I feel that. And I saw this one. Um, IG post by Mike Todd. He was saying people have been asking what he thinks about Will and Jada, and then he was like, honestly, they're no different than just everyday people. Like they are good people who wanted to do it right, but don't have like the blueprint to do it right. So, and then added on to the fact that their marriage is not only like super publicized and out there, but it's also, you know, not it's also like heralded as this kind of goals thing. Like so, and that's the other thing too. I feel like this whole thing has kind of destroyed the notion of relationship goals in a way, because people
Right.
oftentimes will like herald celebrity relationships or YouTube couples or whoever else and like be like, this is goals, this is who I want to be. But at the end of it, we're all people, and if we don't have God in the mix, which based off what I saw at least, I don't think Will and Jada really have, then there's not gonna be that like rock set standard of I treat you and I honor you, and you treat me and you honor me. And what I found interesting too is that at that time they said that they were separated, which but then they came back together, which to me is kind of weird because I get that their like bondage is different, but like even when my parents or other people that couples that I know, like when they have a disagreement, they never just take time off. Like they may like not talk about it for the rest of the night, but they always come back to it. Whereas with this, they took like years and years and years off that we didn't even know about. So then to come back into it with all this baggage, that's another like huge blow to their entire relationship. Added on to the fact that it's already publicized. So I hope people can just take from it that well, goals don't really exist, but but if you have a good set understanding of what a relationship is supposed to be like, or a good example of what it's supposed to be like, then you should be good from there.
Um, I like
Yeah,
I think this. It's like for one, it's exactly why Mike Todd made look on relationship goals. Too many people really idolize and look up to the relationship goals like Kanye West and Kim Kardashian and the Will and Jada, or you have like there's so many others to really go and discuss, but you don't really know what's going on in between closed doors. All you know is what they see on the outside and what they show to like the public at all like the galas and through their Instagram and YouTube videos. So that's exactly why he made it. And I think in one of his chapters he was talking about when him and his like wife took a break, but it wasn't really a break where they're like still connecting. It was a break when they're like, all right, let's see other people. And as what a day said, it's not really what you're supposed to do or not, and it's not what you should do because you're just giving yourself an opportunity for us to cloud your judgment. Because when people say, oh, let's take a break, they're really not saying, oh, let's come back together and convene in a couple of weeks or a month. They're like, all right, you know what, I'm gonna explore, see what I can do, and then after I'm finished getting my fill, then we can talk. But by that point it's probably gonna be late since you've been going and doing what you wanted to do, and values get lost when you do that. So this is exactly why he made that relationship goals book. And for the other part on double standards, it's kind of like, yeah, I understand. And as Billy said, we really walk in two different circles because everyone's like, oh, everyone is created equal and everyone should be treated equal. And like there was the saying, I think it was a bus driver a couple years ago where a woman was acting up on the bus and the bus driver said, oh, if you're gonna act like a man, I'm gonna treat you like a man. And it's like, no, at that point, double standards really shouldn't matter in that aspect because there are certain things as men that we really shouldn't do because we're called to lead by example. And when we do things such as that, we're literally diminishing what God wants us to do as men. So even though it's unfair, sometimes on the outside, it's but it's the hand we've been dealt. So we just gotta honor God by living as He wants us to do, and if that really means, surrendering some opinions that we may have, I believe that we have to do it.
For sure.
What happened to me?
Yeah, and I think this is like something that everyone falls into. The issue of double standards, where it's like you say one thing, but then you do another thing, or you give room for another thing, and it's like, no, 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 that's an exception. It's like, no, that's an exception, because if someone else was to do the exact same thing, it would be wrong. So why are you making it an exception for this place? So it's like you can see that everyone has a fault, and when the Bible like says that like we've all fallen short, it's like it's it's obvious, you know. It's like people have double standards, and it's like this is why we need to be very careful when we stand for things or when we say things, because like you have to check yourself. It's like, am I having a double standard? Because I can be saying one thing, and then at the same time I'm saying another thing, and it's like I'm not living up to the standards that I put up in the beginning.
Yeah.
And
The other thing too I thought was interesting was when in that table talk when she was talking about, the reason why, she kind of said because I wanted to feel good, which to me is like goes back to this whole thing about happiness. Like in our current culture and society, relationships are supposed to be or are painted as like the ultimate road to happiness. Like the person that you're with has to make you happy. Like they have to be your other half. They have to be the one that completes you and whatever. But in the Bible, it calls us to be whole before we even get into that kind of stuff. So it's just, to me, it kind of feels like Will and Jada were kind of like victims of that because since they couldn't really find happiness or I guess completion within each other, then when they split, they try to find it in alternative sources or in this case, alternative people. And didn't really take that time. I mean, I don't know for sure. I don't know their relationship, but from what they said, they didn't really like take time to really like discover themselves that much. And I feel like if they had, then they would have been able to like move forward and move forward better since they have a better understanding of who they are. And mind you, they're also actors. So they're constantly switching their personalities, switching who they are to fit a certain role. And after a while, you're like, you know, who am I even if I don't even know this person anymore? So I feel like that's another thing too people don't talk about is like this whole notion of like relationships equal happiness when in reality relationships are a accessory, they're not a primary. Like yes, you love this person, you want to cherish this person, hold this person accountable, honor this person, whatever, but you shouldn't need that person, which I know sounds weird in like modern context, but think about it. If you and that person are having it out, or if you're having an argument, or if you're doing this and that, then if you built your relationship on the notion of I need to be happy with this person and this person needs to make me happy and needs to complete me, then once they're gone or once they're doing something that's alternative, then like where do you turn to? Because now what you put your completion in doesn't exist anymore. So now you're
mhm.
so now you're trying to figure who you are and like trying to figure yourself out in this false like context. Like you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that
Yeah, I get
that
that.
matters a lot because in like Mike Todd's book, he talks about the whole notion of before the person, and really you have to really make sure in your season of being single. That's why when a lot of people want to rush into relationships, it really can go either one or two ways. Sometimes being like the latter, but there are the exceptions. But if you rely on that other person to be the rest of the 20%, the 10%, even 1%, then that small 1% is going to be amplified as soon as you get into that relationship, because if it's insecurity, it'll be projected onto that person. If it's neediness, if it's being too clingy, being too like emotional, or having really harboring things that probably happened in like a previous relationship, all of that is only going to be amplified more once you get into that relationship. So that's why, you always want to be whole. You always want to be complete 100%, not 99.9. When you get into that relationship, you want to be 100. So all those things, didn't happen. And you know what? All relationships aren't, flawless. There's going to be some arguments, some disputes, but that's really, at the end of the day, that's what makes you stronger as a couple. Because I know, my parents have had, disagreements. They don't, take a break and often do whatever. That's because they know who they are and they can come back and really reconcile and understand from the other's viewpoint like adults instead of acting like children who don't get what they want at a candy store. That's one. The other one is, glad you brought that up about the issues with actors, because you have to remember, even though as they said, Will and Jada are humans, so they're prone to make mistakes, but those mistakes get amplified because they're in the position that they're in, which is Hollywood. And when you're in Hollywood, if you make like the smallest mistake in your relationship, like everything will, just blow up. That's why, they have to put on the pretty face outside at award shows, and then probably behind like the doors, that's what happens. I'm not saying like it does, because I don't know what goes on in their house, but it's Hollywood. It's like if you have a break, you have all these other people that you've interacted with. Like there are so many like kissing scenes and so many different scenes that you have with the opposite sex, that if something's bound to happen in your marriage, the person that you acted with could literally just be, a call away. And that's why it's probably so difficult, not saying morally correct, but it's difficult when you're in a setting such as Hollywood.
You know, Josh, I mean, like one of the things that really stuck out to me was how she justified what she was saying. You're like, oh, past pain, and so she was pursuing happiness. But I think one of the things that actually Mike Todd brought up is that they were building on the wrong foundation, right? And I think that's why it's so important for us, especially as men of God, is like, say, am I coming of wholeness and a healthy place, and to give. Everything she was talking about was saying, I need this, I need that, I'm trying to be happy. Oh, codependency. And it was just really selfish. So, I think that that's the absolute opposite of love. Love is self-giving. So what's going to be best for my husband, Will, and what's going to be best for this August? Came up in the conversation. So, yeah, I think that's just something super important to remember. It's like, am I looking for somebody else to satisfy me, more the fruit of closeness or intimacy, right? Friendship, that like, man, we just vibe together, we get along so well, but my heart posture is to give and to love somebody. Like, I'll be straight up, like if I'm looking for Bianca to make me happy and to satisfy every last desire I have, I'm setting myself up for colossal failure and disappointment, because that's not the foundation of any meaningful relationship. It's love. Man, how can I bless her? How can I give to her? And then what's really special is you find somebody else who does that same thing to you, right? Because now, rather than it being like 50-50, like, oh, I meet you halfway, you meet me halfway, it's 100%. They're healthy, and you picked a destination together. We're going this place. And man, that was just totally missing there. They weren't even all on the same page about how they defined it. Like,
Yeah, entanglement.
One person calls it a relationship, another person calls it entanglement, right? Like, aside from all these.
Oh, you
I
want to go
think
ahead,
what's
Timmy?
sad. I think what's sad is that it was obvious that something was off, but no one really spoke about it. Because like if you look at it, it's like how like there's a certain way that you live that it would affect those around you. And if you look at like the life of the children, it was like everyone is like, what's wrong with these kids? Why are they acting like off? Like why are they like doing all this stuff? And it's like it was not until now that people knew like there was something wrong with the parents' relationship and it was affecting those who were living in the house with them. And it's just really interesting to see that like when you see someone act in a certain way, it's like check who they're around, because what's going on around them, like the environment that they're in could be affecting how they are and who they are.
Yeah, and also Billy, what you said about like the giving aspect, I feel like that's what's missing a lot in like this current generation is like how I can give to this person. It's more of like what will this relationship do for me and like what can I get out of it for myself. And I found in my case, because in my with my ex, this is kind of what the tension was. It was like I wasn't, well, for one, it wasn't really like a Christ-like relationship, but two, it wasn't really focused on like how can I help or like what can I give to her. It's more of like what can I get from being in a relationship with her. Like it wasn't mutual, like you said. Like it was very, take. But and I feel like especially in relationships, people don't really understand just how much of dying to yourself you have to do to make the other person feel valued and feel honored. And it goes both ways. Like of course, as men of God, we're called to be the head and the leaders and to serve our wives first. But even for our wives, the wives are the neck, and the head can't move without the neck. So the wives have to have to also support us and also try to honor us, so that way we will feel empowered and be more empowered to lead them and lead the household, kids included, which is what Tema was talking about with like not really having, like it was evident that something was up because their kids were acting up, versus I feel like if they were in a more Christ-centered mindset, that they'd be able to lead their kids in a more, structured, I guess, way.
I'm going off of what Ade said, and Billy, because relationships are a two-way street. They're not a one-way street, so you can't just go one way and just be like, all right, I'm just gonna go this way without really turning and thinking, oh, how can I make this better, instead of like a two-way street, saying like, how can both help each other and how can I give to this person to really blossom? Because if it's only take, people are gonna get hurt, feelings are gonna get hurt, lives will get destroyed, and it'll really impact everyone else, such as the kids, everyone around you. And it's like, even though it's not important, it's like the fans, because I keep going back to Hollywood. It's like in Hollywood, fan perception, at the end of the day, it's literally what y'all think about. That's why whenever something goes down, the first thing is take to Twitter, post a photo to really improve their image, because without the fans, it's like, who are they? Which is another issue onto itself. But in a relationship, it's like, yeah, because with their kids, for so long, as we watch them grow up, people have been asking about Will and Jada. I mean, not Will and Jada. Willow and Jada. See how close it was. Whatever. Their names. But people have been always asking them like, oh, why are they doing this the way they did? Why is she in a music video at the age that she was? Why is Jaden doing, who knows what with his like hair, posting all these things on like Twitter? I forgot, like there was a whole year where it's just like a bunch of like fake quote.
Yeah, I know you're talking about.
Yeah, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Where it was just a meme of Jaden Smith talking about, oh, why is this like this? And people are like, yo, this is so deep, fake deep. But it's like that was happening.
Oh wow, that's crazy.
How did he die?
what just happened to him? Hey, bro, you good?
Yeah.
Hey, fool, what happened?
Bro, I don't even know. I just died real quick. Give me 1 second.
Dude.
All right, it's like they said nope, you're done. But what was I talking about? Don't feel me.
Willow and Jaden.
Yeah.
Jaden and Willow.
Yeah, it's like they were just. It's like you. It's like, yeah, they were doing all this stuff because like in the background, It's like we thought that everything was like funny and fine because we didn't know, but now that we know, it's like our eyes have opened up and it's like, oh, because this happened. This is why they were doing the things that they did with no really adult supervision. And you know what? Even though it's because they're parents, I say it can happen to anyone because you have like children of pastors who can act up because their parents are too strict. So it's not
Mm-hmm.
really fair to limit this to okay, because you can be good parents and have your children still go haywire just because you were trying to like protect them a little too much. So it's always a balance. So it's not really fair to put it all on them because we don't know how they could have turned out, especially since their children being raised in Hollywood. That can go either one or two ways, as we've seen in its previous circumstances. But now that we know what we know, shout out to Hamilton for that quote.
I guess.
This dude.
I have to, but it's like in all seriousness, like we know now that we know, it's like it's a totally different feeling to what happened.
Right, and like
Go
yo,
on, John.
like on my fault. Yeah, so since we're talking about relationships, right, and I feel like a lot of basis of how people get into relationships is very skewed. Of course, both in men and women's side, of course, you know what I'm saying. But like I've noticed that like sometimes like some people would base their insecurities and make it seem as if it's an attack towards a group of them in general. Like for example, a post that was strictly about like hairstyles, right? He was saying, okay, these hairstyles look good, and they happen to all be a woman of lighter shade, right? It wasn't about the shade or the beauty of the most about the hairstyles. And then you see in the comments, where the flavor, where the dark skinned woman at? And it's like, it wasn't an attack towards y'all, you know what I'm saying? It was just a guy talking about hairstyles, but it never was meant to be an attack towards anyone. It wasn't even a degradation of anyone. And I feel like I've seen that a lot. Like people use their insecurities to make it seem like it's a, you can either like be like a race thing or a gender thing or something like that. When it really is, it's just something about yourself that you make it feel bigger than it really is. And I've seen that so many times.
I feel like also when it gets like back to the thing about like double standards, it's like there's like so many issues that one of the main issues that people always talk about is the thing about body shaming and how it's like if a man says, oh, like why don't you lose like a couple pounds, it can be considered as like body shaming. But and then it's like the other gender will go on and talk about, oh, why can't you be like 5'9" and
No,
and
not even
then
that. Like 6'4", bro.
and then it's
Nine.
like and that's like the main thing that people focus on, which is not the like important thing because people are always focused on like the outer appearance on, oh, why can't, it's like the whole like the light skin versus like the dark skin. When light skins speak up about dark skins, it's called can be called color, it's called colorism. But when the dark skins decide to voice their opinions about the light skins, they feel justified in doing it because of that they feel hurt about what happened to them in the past and that they're not looked on favorably. But at the same time, it's still colorism. But they don't, it's always like a balance of what they think is right, which is always about like the outer appearance, which is ruin to really all relationships because people change. It's like you're not going to be the same as you were when you're 40 as you were when you were like 20. That's why love and God has to be such like a cornerstone of it. If you base it off of like outside appearance, then you're probably going to be real disappointed as you go down the line because it wasn't based on the core fundamentals of a relationship should be, instead of what you are idolizing in your mind of what you feel like perfect person would be, like the 5'9", probably like mixed complexion, and then that's why a lot of people are hurt. That's why double standards get formed.
Exactly.
I
And
would
then like,
agree. I would
oh, my
agree.
fault, my
And
fault.
oh no, you good. But
Oh,
my Todd's got two sermons about this. The first one is about ripping up the list. Then the second one was when he was talking about attraction. And I think that works well because like oftentimes people equate like attraction to satisfaction. So it's like I see this person and I think that they're super attractive. Therefore, I have to make every effort in my will to make this work because I want their attraction to satisfy me only versus when you look at it from the Christ perspective, it's like this person is attractive, but ultimately, we don't date to mess around. Like ultimately, the goal for Christian male dating is marriage. So for us, we prioritize heart posture, you know, heart posture towards Jesus and things like that. And then while attraction does play a big part, because ultimately you do have to be attracted to the person you're spending the rest of your life with. It's not always the like it's not the end all be all. And then when you talk about like tearing up your list, that's where so many people get messed up, because from from the jump they had this list about like how my guy has to be, or like how my dude has to look, or how my girl has to look, or whatever. And then not only does it ruin them, but then it also creates a bunch of insecurities in the people that they curve. Because like for example, if a guy were to ask out a girl, and the girl is like, "Oh nah, like you five, whatever. I want a guy that's like six, whatever." Then that creates an insecurity in him, where it's like, "Well, dang, like I'm not tall enough." And then that makes him bitter. Then on the flip side, if a girl would have asked out a guy, then the guy was like, "Oh, sorry, like your skin is too dark for me, whatever." Then that creates insecurity about her skin tone to her. So really, really the hurt is a two-way street, because people aren't prioritizing the right things.
And you notice how like now, like being tall becomes a personality trait. Like people be like, yeah, I'm 5'5", I got a personality of a 6'4"
Yo,
person.
let me tell you something,
I'm
bro.
like, bro,
Let me
what?
tell you something, man. Look, as the resident 5'7", I have been ridiculed so, especially in freaking college. There was actually no, I'm not, I'm not,
It
I'm
must
not,
be
I'm not
nice.
gonna talk about that. But
It must be nice to be 5'7", isn't it?
um, yeah, how's it feel to be tall, Billy? You're like what, 6'2"?
6'3", man. If I could dish out some extra inches, I'll throw it. I don't need it anymore. I'm married, so I'm ready to go. I'm good. No,
Yeah.
man, but I love what you said, guys. And I think there's one proverb that we just have to keep in mind. It's like, beauty is fleeting and charm is deceptive, but a woman who fears the Lord is highly. And you can switch that role, right? Handsomeness is fleeting and status is deceptive, but a man who fears the Lord is highly to be praised, or whatever you put in there. And like, it's not bad to have a list, but is that list filled with things that are character based? You know, like I had a 4-point list when I was praying about just finding somebody I could be on this journey of life with, and they were really had nothing to do with external characteristics. Um, and I think that's I had a secondary list of like, well, as long as I'm praying, I may as well. But I knew that was superficial, right? Like, yeah, we live in a world that's vain. Our world is completely all about the external, and we live in a consumer world. So I want this characteristic, this characteristic, this characteristic, and we can get that in so many different ways at the store, online. I mean, you can find basically any product you want. So we end up coming for personal happiness. And that dehumanizes, like you said, like that fundamentally strips the other person of the image of God on them, the dignity and the value. And so that's where our view of dating and relationships is actually like 180 degrees flip. And so I want to be giving, I want to be loving. I don't want to see you as a series of traits. I want to see you as an integrated whole, created in the image of God, and to respect you and honor you for who God has made you to be. He didn't make a mistake, right? He didn't make a mistake if you're short and dark skinned, right? You're beautiful. You're fearfully and wonderfully made. If I can't recognize that about somebody else, that probably says something that I don't even believe myself, right? I don't think that I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. God loves you when He looks at you and He says, that's my son, that's my daughter. And so that's why, for me, it always comes back to, man, we got to be in right relationship with God, because if we're not healthy, we can't give health, right? If Jada's not healthy, if she's defining her whole life and her perspective on relationships based on her past pain, then she's building on this foundation that will never really be healthy. And man, guys, I had a buddy who, after a tough breakup, really helped me. And he said, Billy, don't let your past pain define you. And
Mm.
I feel like as believers, and there's just no excuse for that. Like it happened, it sucked, it was terrible, but that's not what defines me. I'm not going to act according to that. I'm going to act according to how God defines me, so that I can be an expression of His love to you. And so I would have to come back to that a bunch, man. Like my past pain doesn't define me, and because you start meeting people, and it's like it kind of hits those insecurities, it hits those spots again. So man, like we just got to be comfortable with being completely out of step with the world, and just realizing the identity that God's placed on every human being.
I'm gonna say my last thought on the subject, but I feel like as Billy was talking about like consumerism and how this world really consumes, it made me think about all those teen magazines that like you see and all like the People magazines where it talks about fashion and the latest like weight loss tips, and they would like always have, oh, what's your dream like guy or dream girl checklist in there. It really hurt us mentally when looking for a companion, because now in our back of the head we have all these things that we want, not what we need, and then that's only amplified by Instagram, and all these people are like posting, and all like the people are like liking, and then you see, oh, that's why probably Instagram took off the likes. So it's like, oh, this is getting a lot of likes, maybe this is what I need to look like, instead of why not just be the person that God called me to be, not only on the outside but on the inside. And then on Twitter, that's amplified because you see people are voicing their opinions on Twitter, because it's literally the place to voice your opinions. And then when you see a lot of retweets, it's like, oh, I see all these like retweets, and I see all these these girls or guys liking it, so maybe that's what they like, and it starts to harm your psyche. And then I feel like those standards is literally built, metaphors like everyone has a glass house that is literally built off of their insecurities, and the problem is they're casting stones from inside their house, and as soon as someone goes awry,
Bro, what?
how they feel is really going to be like magnified, because it's like, oh, I've been casting all these stones, but as soon as I get hit, I start to feel all the effects that I maybe didn't want to feel, that I was projecting onto others. So that's really what I believe that double standards are. It's just a glass house of people casting.
For real. And then also, back onto Billy's point, that's why lusting after somebody is so like detrimental to the mindset, because when you lust after somebody, you follow the equation of love that the world has set out, because we don't know love like we really should, because in this world we equate love with stimulation. Like it's like you're not it's like we equate love with how somebody can stimulate us, like obviously sexually, but also like if they're an interesting person, quote unquote. It's like, if you notice, so many people break up because they're like, oh well, this person got boring after a while, this person was interesting to talk to, this person it just didn't do it anymore. Like that's literally how I've seen people break up for that same reason before. But it's like love is never at first sight. Love is always like cultivated. Like attraction and interest is always initial, but love is something that takes time to really cultivate, because love is service. Love is dying to yourself to serve another person on both sides of the spectrum. And then also that's also the reason why sleeping around a lot is detrimental, because then it creates this imaginary person that you'll never be able to have. So for example, say that you spend your entire 20s like just sleeping around with different women, or even on the converse, sleeping around with different men. Then when you finally decide to settle down and find somebody, your you're picking the qualities that you liked in the people that you slept with in the past, and then building up an imaginary person that doesn't exist. So it's like when you're trying to find somebody, it's like, you know, she's got to cook like this person, and she's got to look like that person, and she's got to talk like that person, she's got to act like that person. But but like the Bible says, we are fearfully and wonderfully made. Our characteristics are only our characteristics, nobody else's. So you can't be taking different aspects of people to try to make this one imaginary person. I mean, because then that person doesn't exist. But because you spent your time, messing around with different people, also creating soul ties with those same people, now your soul is tied to those characteristics, and your soul is tied to that attraction.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think I feel like there might be or 3 or 4 stages, or no, three stages you could find yourself. The first stage would be I do what I want. That's just like straight up I do what I want. I pick the characteristics. I say this is what I want. And then the second boat, and I feel like I found myself in this boat, is when God had promised you and you settle for what looks like what God has promised you. And that's a dangerous boat to find yourself, because it's like, you know what? God promised me a wife. He said she was going to be like this. Oh, she looks like what God had said to me. So, I'm going to hang out with her because she looks like what God has promised for me, and God hasn't given you the command to go. And then the last boat you can find yourself is like following according to like his steps and like his commands, and like God had promised you, and then he told you this is the time, this is the person to go for, and then you go for it.
Yeah, I feel that, man. Feel that. Any other like closing thoughts before we move on?
Oh yeah, this one last thing that misogyny needs to be useless. Y'all used to be throwing that word like it's paper, bro. On God.
Wait, what
Like
word? I didn't hear
misogyny,
you. Oh,
misogyny.
misogyny?
Yes, bro.
Mis-
Like someone
oh.
said that it was misogynistic for guys not to like girls who base their relationships on astrology. I was like, bro, how, yo? Like, shorty coming
I
to you and say,
mean,
I was like, what are you, like, what are you talking about, bro? Like, what do you mean? Like, shorty's like, are you a Capricorn? I can't date you. I'm gonna be like, what? What are you talking about, bro? Like, I know somebody be at the same birthday as I do, have a complete different personality than me. Like, this, what do you mean? Like, get out of here, yo. All right, yo.
yeah, like those tweets where it's like people asking for their birth charts before they ask somebody out.
Like, son, yo.
Like, yo, you for real?
What also ticks me off? The people who go off of dating by their signs. It's like, oh, Virgos are the best. Oh, Leos are like the kings, and like Geminis are all. And I'm like, are y'all listening to yourselves? So if y'all really base off of dating and marriage by by your zodiac signs, then I got bad news for you. I'm sorry. Like,
Yeah,
why?
fam.
Nonsense.
Like, there's no point.
Yeah, I mean that's a whole other topic we can talk about. Like,
We can talk about that another day, bro. It's not a
like
fault.
yeah,
I'm
we
just
can
saying.
talk about another day. But
Misogyny is not everything, yo.
some Josh keep dying, man.
He died again? Oh. So, Josh, you good?
Josh, you good?
Damn, that's crazy.
Josh, you good?
That man is KO'd, bro.
Damn, we lost him. Rest in peace. But
How's everyone doing today,
Yeah. While we wait for him, I love what you said about we equate love with stimulation. Man, I thought that was really, really insightful. I like having mental paradigms so I can like run through them, and like rather than love being stimulation, because again that's like how you make me feel, and then I assemble all these characteristics so that you can maximally stimulate me. Then thinking about like flipping it a really godly perspective is connection. Right? How can I connect with you? And that is a two-way street. That like you connect with me, I connect with you, and that's really where intimacy is formed. Intimacy and friendship, and then emotional intimacy, and eventually sexual intimacy. And so it's really all about like how can we connect rather than just like.
For sure. Yeah. That's
Definitely.
real good. That's real good. Because I mean, ultimately, that's what marriage is. You know, the Bible says two become one. So that means everything that you do with that person is a two-way street. So that includes all kinds of intimacy and connections. But I agree with you definitely. But so next topic on the list is, well, it's pretty much two things, but we can talk about we talk about the second one kind of shorter. The first one is just how everybody's navigating this new season of like reconciliation, especially racial reconciliation. Like this question is mainly posed to Billy because, well, for one, you are, you know, a white male Christian who also has a black wife. So, and the people that I've seen that are in interracial relationships, even Christian racial relationships, they find it they're finding the season very hard right now because there are just things they're that most of the time their white counterpart just has not had to experience in their life that they're now becoming privy to. And you know, obviously you don't have to share everything that's going on in you and Bianca's relationship, but how has this like season been? Well, for one, educating you, but also just like how's it been? Just learning how her blackness really sets in her life.
Yeah, great question. Um, Honestly, the season has been difficult. Depending on how we frame this conversation, really depends. Like, it'll impact where we go from here. But I think that there's something that we all have in common: humanity. And so I'm not, when I see something on the news, I'm not just looking at it from like a racial perspective. I'm looking at it from a human perspective. So I grieve when I see the loss of any life because that life is valuable to God. And then you can, like that. I think that we've got to, especially as Christians, just be willing when lives are snuffed out unfairly and enter into that grief with our black brothers and sisters, even though it's going to be different because you feel it differently. Like my experience is not your experience. I've got a but that first step of just man, like I'm not going to run grieving the loss of life. One, for in our relationship with me and Bianca, like I don't know, couple dates in. So I mean, like, yeah, I just broke the ice with her. Like we always had very deep conversations right away, and it was just one series of deep conversations after the other. So I would be like, "So you're black and I'm white. Can we talk about it now?" And she's like, "Oh my God, we're trying to talk about this." So, and I asked her straight up because I realized that, hey, I'm not you, and I realized that my experience in life has been different than you, and that's largely shaped by our racial identity and our experiences. So I just asked her, hey, what's it like for you to be a black woman in America? And just listen and validate her experiences and say, obviously we've lived very different lives. And so I think, again, that for us should fall under the category of just loving our neighbor, right? Like, you're not me. You're not me in a lot of ways. And so I'm going to ask you what it's like to be you. I'm not going to assume. And that is I think a principle of friendship, of love, of connection. And so then that definitely applies when it comes to the racial differences in America. Like, yeah, when I walk into a space, people treat me differently than they treat her. And she's a doctor. I know that. I see that. When I'm with my friends and, we're having trouble with a waitress, like, they all look at me like, oh, come on, Billy, you got to go talk to her. And they respond differently to me. And these are very small, some, not trivial, but, not Ahmaud Arbery examples. And so I think that that's just, recognizing that, hey, as an individual, you're an individual. I don't know your story, whether you're white or black. So I'm going to get to know you and learn how to love you. And then the more different our backgrounds are, the more different our experiences are going to be. And so I've got to just learn what your life is like. So that's kind of my general, like, 30,000 foot perspective. Fortunately, guys, like, this is not the first time I've thought about this, and I think I always take the position of a learner. And I think that's just, again, as men of God, we always need to approach life with humility, which means that in every situation, we always have something to learn. So I can always learn from you guys. And I love being here with you guys. I'm learning from you as I'm taking mental notes. I'm you typing things down because I mean, like, I love what you said already all day. So taking that posture of humility, I think I have more to learn, but fortunately, I've done a lot of legwork before these moments to educate myself and figure out how I can be an agent of reconciliation, which is really offshoot of the gospel. I see the gospel issue because Jesus is in the business of reconciliation, according to Ephesians 2. He tears down the dividing walls and reconciles us into one body and brings us as a unified body to God. And so I definitely see all of our relationships being unified so that we can come to God as a single unit, as a family, as a body. And I'm willing to tear down every wall to make sure that we can do that, because I think that's a Jesus thing, not just a political thing. But of course, all those terms and everything for me is always founded on what does Jesus say about this? How does God bring definition to justice? And so it's been a heartbreaking time.
Yeah, I totally agree. But well, for one, I definitely do appreciate, you sharing your perspective on it. Just, as a as a white male and as a married white male. But um that is one thing that I've noticed is that the and of course I'm speaking in in general terms, but I feel like this isn't something that the white evangelical sector of the church has really had to think about until now, because now it's right in our face. We're in quarantine, life isn't going on, so we're just seeing this happen in live action, literally. And for once, they've had to think about, how does this not only affect me, but affect the people of color who I'm also called to lead to Christ. Because I mean, honestly, there are some who I've seen, excuse me, that have doubted that their pastor's ability because of his skin color. And then there are some who have gone to black churches who the pastors aren't even well equipped to talk about that kind of stuff, but because they're black, they feel like they would have a better experience of it. But I mean, ultimately, it all comes down to what are you doing to teach yourself and to enter into different perspectives, because that's what Jesus did in the Bible with every disciple, every miracle that he performed. He always went out of his way to relate to different people. Always went out of his way to heal different people. I mean, he didn't have to he didn't have to heal those all of those what are they called, lepers. He could have just said, you know what, that's not my cue, I'm gonna go ahead and do what God's called me to do and be crucified. But he went out of his way to go ahead and to do that. He had a mission, which was to ultimately be sacrificed, but he went ahead and went out of his way to help those in need, regardless if they were Jew, Gentile, or Pharisee. He still went ahead and did what he needed to do, because that's the kind of God that he was. So for us as men of God, we need to emulate that, both in that space and also in this worldly space where we are dealing with these worldly constructs of race and these worldly constructs of division.
Um, in this climate that we're dealing with, it is, I've seen a lot of people wonder on who to turn to, because again, it's like you're right, that many people are being thrusted into this for the first time, who are being Christian, and you know what? You can't fault them, because I know if I never have to deal with something in my life, I would not know how to react either. But in this circumstance, it's all about the it's like teachers learn, students learn from teachers, but teachers can also learn from students. And it's a fact that it's like now we've experienced this because we know. So I know people who are asking, oh, why should we educate them on our experiences? Because it's like they're the ones that they perceive like the entire white race is, you know, helping to bring them down. But it's a complete opposite. It's like, I mean, I don't want to say it's a complete opposite, but it's like if you have the opportunity to educate someone on what happened in the past and what's currently happening to help them understand and do what they can do to prevent it in the future, then by all means, I would willingly help them. Just like Billy said, he's always learning from us and our experiences that really help him understand how he can help us. And I feel like that's the end goal on how you can continue helping each other. Like Deshaun Jackson just had a whole like issue with saying some Billy knows he had a whole issue with that. But it's actually wild that a player from the New England Patriots who is Jewish, Julian Edelman, I think he's Jewish, I don't know, but he said, look,
Yeah.
man, I understand what's happening. So how about you invite me to the African American Museum in DC, and then we can also go to the Holocaust Museum in DC, and to really understand how we can better help each other and our communities. And I really think that was a correct goal because in that circumstance, he's helping Deshaun Jackson know how he could word things better. And in turn, Julian Edelman is learning probably things that he already didn't know. That he probably didn't know about what Deshaun Jackson and the African American community is going through. So I feel like that could be a lesson to really people in general on, oh, you know, I really don't know if my pastor's at woe. If you don't know, then it's like no question is a bad question, and any opportunity is an opportunity. So if you don't know if someone's equipped, you're like, oh, you know, can we like talk about this? Can I like express my feelings on this subject? Because closed mouths don't get fed, and if a closed mouth doesn't get fed, it only leads to, you know, more people probably not knowing and saying things ignorantly that they probably didn't know was offending an entire community. So as I believe, but as Black Christians, we have the opportunity to really help white Christians really know what we're going through. Because if we don't help them, then we can't get mad at expecting them to know things that they probably didn't know because they never had to deal with it.
John,
Mhm.
wait, what was the thing on Twitter about like Terry Crews? Because like I just went back to read his tweets. Like he said, I was wait a
Yeah.
minute, this man is speaking facts. Because like look at one of the things he said. It says defeating white supremacy without white people creates black supremacy. Equality is the truth. Like it or not, we're all in this together. And it's like that's no lie. Like it's like how if you want to minister to someone that's a drug addict and you don't know the mind of a drug addict, how would you be able to minister to a drug addict? It's like that's the same thing. And then when I read that, I'm like, wait, I thought like everyone was canceling him. And I think I read another tweet that says, if you're a child of God, you're my brother, my sister. I have family of every race, creed, and ideology. We must ensure Black Lives Matter doesn't morph into Black Lives is better. And then someone says this is unintellectual and irresponsible. You're developed into the enemy of the people. Ignorance would be your downfall. And I'm like,
I mean, you were right. People were canceling him. It was the Black community that was canceling him because for some reason, and I really don't know why. Because this works on both sides. You can claim to be Christian, but it's like your ideals. You can't have your ideals being at the forefront of like this is how I'm gonna feel for my race. Like you can't have if you're a Christian, you're Christian before your race. So you can't just allow your feelings on your race to jump ahead of your feelings as a Christian. And that's what most people do. And that's why so many people are afraid to really speak out on these topics, because if you look underneath, bro, I literally saw Terry Crews getting dragged through the mud and back. They were saying, "Oh, you that scene in, I think the movie he was in was it White Chicks?"
Yeah, he was in white.
Yeah, they were saying, "Oh, Terry Crews was actually playing himself back then." I was reading all of like the comments that were happening, and literally it was just like, yeah, people were definitely canceling, but it wasn't for a good reason. It was for, oh, I see you as me, and the fact that you're speaking out on what I'm speaking out against means you're directly speaking out against our race by trying to say, oh, although this may be happening, white people are still our brothers and sisters in Christ, and it doesn't matter, what color you are, because you're my. If you're Christ, then that means like we're like related in our religion, and apparently people don't want to hear that. So they believe that if you're speaking and defending the enemy, I guess is what they want to say, then you're going against our race, and that's why he was getting dragged for it. Yeah,
Nah,
it was
I just
it was a mess.
I'm gonna have to disagree a little bit, because the thing with Terry Crews, at least with, first of all, let me preface this by saying I agree with him on the Children of God perspective. That's totally valid. The Black Lives Better things, what I don't agree with, because he's trying to say, to me, it kind of read like, let's make sure that like we're not thinking that we're superior to white people. But Black Lives Matter has never been about supremacy. It's always been about equality and being treated as a equal in relativity to the white masses, or not even in that kind of relativity, but just receiving due process and receiving due treatment under the law and the Constitution of the United States. So, but then I don't know why he's thinking that after we get our equality, we're just gonna go buck wild and start enslaving white people, or start reversing the paradigm, because that paradigm can't be reversed if it doesn't exist anymore. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to break down the current system. We're not trying to reverse it. So that was my only issue with Terry Crews on that tip. But
yeah, that's
I mean, I don't know. Yeah.
Well, here's the thing, Ade. You might be speaking for yourself, and this is like, I think this is why it's kind of like this kind of topic, where it's like, you have good intentions, but what about the person next to you? What about his intentions? Because someone could be thinking in their heart, like, man, I don't want to see these people burn in hell. I want to see all of them die. And you have the intention of, like, man, I want us to be equal, and I want us to be treated as equal. So it's like, I get like the point where he was coming from, because it's kind of like how sin is, right? Like temptation will come, but it's like when you give into the temptation, that's when it becomes sin. So it's like noting that some people will fall into that cycle of, I want these people to suffer. I want to have some sort of power over these people for them to see um, through my eyes. So like not everybody will have the same mentality as we have towards it. So it's like um, just pretty much highlighting it, like, and pretty much stressing out what the main point is and what the main goal is. Because I feel like some people would have that kind of mindset towards like a supremacy kind of mindset.
I feel like the best quote for this is, people always say being pro-black doesn't mean being anti-white, and that's literally that's literally what it boils down to. Because people think, as soon as you start getting like all of this, is like what Ade said, things are gonna like suddenly like flip flop, and it's like that can't be the case, because they're always gonna be seen as, quote unquote, the lesser and the oppressed. Is like you can be prejudiced, but apparently no, I'm not gonna because I don't look. You know? But it's like we can't like topple society. We just want equal rights. We don't want we don't want any form of like power. We don't want like our own island. We don't want to be sitting on top of the world with a crown and like a staff in our hand. That's not what we want. Literally all we want is to be able to wear the hair that we want in in businesses and schools without getting ridiculed. Yeah, I see you, Treme. Yeah, all we want is that. All we want is the fair trials. All we want to do is if we did something wrong to get arrested peacefully. Because I'm not gonna front and say everyone black that gets arrested is quote unquote, oh, free him, he did nothing wrong. I'm not gonna quote unquote like say that, but at least like if you catch him or her, don't execute him on the spot. Because as I say and time again, if Dylan Roof can go to McDonald's after doing what he did, then at the very least you can arrest African Americans and just allow them to at least try and make bail. You don't even get them to make bail. You just send them you just being like boom and he's gone or she's gone. But at least do that. So we don't want power. All the civil rights, it's like no, it's not called blacks. It's not called like black power. It's called civil rights because that we wanted this entire time since Martin Luther King and beyond. All we wanted was just rights. And the fact that people think that equal rights means more power and corruption in the black community. It's like it's no, that's never been the topic of discussion.
And that's literally what we always try to explain to the All Lives Matter group. It's never been Black Lives Matter more. It's been Black Matter 2. This is why Terry Crews, his sayings are untimed. That's what the problem is. He's crossing a bridge that doesn't exist. Cross the bridge which we get to a point when black supremacy can be even an option. Right now, it's not an option because we're already in a repressed situation. That's why people want Terry Crews' ass. It's like, bro, that's not gonna happen right now because we're not in a situation where it can happen. And like he would keep going, like in that interview with Don Lemon, he keeps talking about like black and black crime. And it's like, bro, again, that's crime in our communities. We understand there is crime in our communities, and it's a problem that needs to be dealt with. But you actually try to make it as if the Black Lives Matter group is supposed to handle all of that, and that's a government problem. It's attacking. We're attacking how the government is not helping us, and how we're in those neighborhoods in the first place because crime habits in proximity. If y'all didn't notice, and we're already in lower classes proximity neighborhoods because of economic racism and systemic racism. So we're attacking all of that directly and indirectly. He's making it seem like it's a problem we're not attacking. That is why he's getting attacked. Not because of what he says completely wrong.
Terry Crews, it's like that one tweet.
Yeah.
There was like only one tweet I agreed with from Terry Crews, and that was the thing where he was like, "We're all, brothers and sisters in Christ." That's the only tweet that I will give him like the benefit of the doubt for. But Jonathan and Adair, right? Like there have been some tweets where he has kind of been like outlandish and sort of like diminishing the black community, talking about as soon as I heard him talk about black on black crime, I was like, all right, Terry Crews, someone gotta stop your Twitter. Like someone has to stop you. It's like no, it's like in all seriousness, as soon as you do that, you're breaching into like the all lives matter category. And the thing about I've heard this all the time, how do all lives matter if black lives don't matter? So it's like that's like the first and foremost thing to really just use all of that. But yeah, when it comes to Terry Crews and the stuff that he says, that's why it's like I hate Twitter, but I like Twitter. I hate Twitter at the same time because it gives people who are verified the ability to like voice opinions like that and really get like acknowledged, and then all the people start to like like, oh, you know what? It's like, you know what? He's right. Next thing you know, black on black crime is like trending at like number 3, and it's like it's really helping to diminish all of the work that has been done in like the past like couple months and years. And it's like, all right, like if you're verified and on Twitter, at least make sure what you're saying, think about before you tweet. Like that's literally about like Twitter. So I never understand what Terry Crews is doing about that.
Yeah, but the thing about black on black crime is like, first of all, the the politicized term and narrative of black on black crime does not exist, because when they say on CNN or Fox News, black on black crime is X, Y, or Z, what they're pretty much saying is, you guys are the problem of why you're not elevating.
Mhm.
And the issue with that is that we wouldn't be in this position if the past hadn't put us in that position. It's like um, Kendrick Lamar has a song called "Blacker the Berry," where he's like, "How could I cry when Trayvon Martin was in the street if gang banging made me kill somebody blacker than me?"
Hypocrite.
Which is true, but at the same time, it's like he wouldn't have had to be he wouldn't have had to be in that position and then ultimately be a hypocrite if if that position didn't exist in the first place. But that's always people's like scapegoat when they talk about why we're so far behind. It's like, well, if y'all just try better, well, we are trying, and guess what? We black people have tried with the bare minimum, and right now, hip hop runs the world. Period. Black culture runs the world. Period. And that's what giving us the bare minimum of what we have. So imagine what we could do in this world given equal opportunities for housing, college, locations. List goes on. List goes on and on and on and on. But that's also why I didn't really like what Terry Crews said, aside from the child of God thing, because I felt like he was giving people who would say things like police, like pull up by the bootstraps, and people who say all lives matter. I feel like he was giving them somebody to point to, like, oh, Terry Crews said this, so, and Terry Crews is black, so that means that y'all must agree, right? It's like when people, this happens all the time, but it's like when people tried to use Kanye back in like 2018 for saying like, see, he supports Trump, why don't y'all support Trump? Like, people oftentimes equate that people oftentimes assume that black thought is this monolith, when really we're on opposite, we're all different, but we all have and want the same thing, which at the end of the day is equality. So that's the only thing about Terry Crews, I'll say.
Let me hear about let me hear about black on black crime in Chicago one more time. One more.
Yo,
Let me hear about those two one more time.
honestly, man.
I think where that comes from is a place of a lack of love and empathy. Because I think I had found myself falling in the mindset of like, because you know how like, and I think I've told you about like the whole thing of like, man, people are still killing like people in the streets, like gangbang and all that stuff, and like with the whole thing that had happened with Sequoia Turner, the little girl that was shot in the car by those like protesters, and then it was like it kind of reminded me of those people who have the little signs that go around like campuses or like places and say you will burn in hell. Because like if you think about it, they have the truth, they are speaking the truth. Like, yeah, if you continue living in sin, you will go to hell. But it's like there's one thing to have the truth and condemn people, like because you have the truth. And I feel like that's the same place that Terry Crews was coming from, where it was like, this is the truth and I'm going to condemn it. It's like, no, you can't just put the truth like that, because your truth has to come with love. Where it's like, I understand where you're coming from. I'm going to reason with you with this. I'm going to speak with you. I'm going to get down on your level. I think I've just been going through like First John to understand truly what love is. I'm like going to the basis of love and how it's like God is love and how it's like God calls us to love others. And if we don't love others, then we don't know God. And it's like when we have the truth and then when we carry the truth in love, our approach towards speaking the truth, um, it becomes like a different approach that is, it would be received by people because like it's the truth, and not just the truth but the truth spoken in love.
Yeah,
I mean, I
yeah,
guess.
I totally agree. That's ultimately the what we're struggling with now is, I mean, look, if Terry Crews had just worded what he was saying better, I probably would have agreed with more of what he said. But
Or at the right time.
um,
Okay.
say what?
So, or at the right time. Like I said,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
either way
Or
makes
at the right
sense.
time. Oh wait, did Billy leave?
He's probably going through the same thing we're going through. But hold up, before you continue, let me read the quote, right? Because we talk about black and black
Yeah.
and systemic racism. So before Martin Luther King died, right? I sent the picture to you guys in the group chat. He said that if I can, I should start it from. And I am afraid that even as we integrate, we are walking into a place that does not understand that this nation needs to be deeply concerned with the plight of the poor and its disenfranchised. Until we commit ourselves to ensuring that the underclass is given justice and opportunity, we will continue to perpetuate the anger and violence that tears the soul of this nation. He, in hindsight, you would think that he kind of understands that even though he integrated us into a certain point where we could be equal in some way, shape, or form, we are going to a place where now as we've already been at a disenfranchised spot, now we have to deal with the life of having to catch up with our economic disabilities, life that we already in the underclass and lower class situations. Because like I said, crime happens in proximity, right? And mind you, have you noticed that if you go to the projects, you see more people of color than the white people, right? In the majority of those
Hmm.
of projects in different neighborhoods. There's a reason for that. It's not like it's a coincidence that we just choose to live in these places. It's not like we want to live in these type of neighborhoods. We've just been at a point where we're trying to get out of these neighborhoods, but we end up in those places. And when crime happens, it happens in that proximity of those neighborhoods. MLK himself already knew at some point, even though we're going integrated with other white people, we're already at a disadvantage in general, continuing on just in a systemic point. So this aspect of saying like black and black crime, because that is not a racially pushed thing. First and foremost, no, a black guy does not kill another black guy because he's black. That's never the case. It never will be the case. All right, like it's just that it's not how it works. These are two very big problems that needs to be solved, but they're not the same aspect of those problems. So using it to disregard a racially pushed problem does not help anything. It just causes more division.
John, I love what you
Mm.
just said because it just took me back to this experience that I had when I was going to like the Washington. So, and I love like the like aspect that you just spoke of, like the projects, and I'm just thinking about it. If white people grew up in the project, they will act the same way black people were because of the position that you're in. And I went to like this washateria and I saw this black guy arguing with this white guy, and they both looked like they were from the hood. Like, they both looked like they were on something, and they were just yelling at each other. And then the white guy had his dog, the black guy had a knife. I'm like, what is going on here? So I walk in, and then thank God he saved me. I left soap, so I had to leave. And as soon as I come out, I hear the white guy saying "nigger, nigger." Like I'm like, what is going on? And
Right.
then he and his black friend holding him back. He was like, hey man, chill. And then the other black guy is like, you know what? I'm going to bring my own man. I got something for you. I got something for you. And I'm like, shoot. Like when you just said that, it just got me thinking. Like that is the same thing that happens with black and black crime, where it's like you grow up in a certain space and environment, and that's the only thing. So it's like if that could happen between a white man and a black man who grew up in the same area, it could happen between anyone. So it's like it's more than just color. It's now like okay, like deep within.
See,
Yeah.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
Oh wait, go
John.
ahead, Billy.
Totally.
Sorry.
I think what you said was so good. In people, they're not killing each other, right? I think you get to the heart of the matter there, and you can contrast. And so, there's not a racial prejudice that's involved in killing one another. And this is pretty statistically well known is that you end up so whoever you live closest to, you end up killing. So the majority of white people are white people because they live next to each other. So it's more of what it's telling you is that how people arrange and the people that they get angry at are their other brothers or the people closest to them. You could say their neighbors, like Cain and Abel, right? He just killed him because he saw him and he was jealous and he wanted what he had. And so I think that's yeah, it's kind of a non sequitur. Um, in terms of Terry Crews, I think he's probably just trying to affirm that every person's life matters. Um, how it's taken, and it was just a very poorly timed truth. You can say something that's true, and in very bad taste because it's not timely. So, let's address the issues that we're facing right now, or the issues that are coming up in our culture right now. But let's also address systemic issues across the board. And John, I was going to reply to you in the chat. I really like that quote that you shared from MLK. And I think this gets at the heart of the matter is our ultimate goal is not just integration, it's love. And I think that's a very important distinction, because if I'm just trying to integrate, I'm going to be high fiving, like, yeah, I'm on your podcast, we're integrated. Yeah, but I'm going to keep on. But if I really love you, then, like that, the heart of that is like, no, you and me, we're the same. Like, you are me. My brother and I are connected, and it's our humanity. It's the image of God in your life. It is my skin color. It's not the thing that connects me to you. It's the fact that my God loves you and knows you, and now since I'm His, I'm gonna love you and know you too, and I'm not gonna let any barrier stand in the way. Which then helps me to shed, especially as a white person, it helps me to shed my whiteness and address real issues. So you can't have real reconciliation without, right? That can't happen. That's just called sweeping it under the rug. So if we're going to have real reconciliation, we've got to be willing to get all of the things out in the open. Redlining is a huge issue that's faced the black community, and it has created systemic injustice because people were discriminated against just because of their race, and now it's caused a massive generational disparity. Right. So this again is not just it's not a political issue for us as Christians. It's a gospel issue because this is gospel work is what's been broken. That's justice in the scripture, and so we really need to have a perspective of this. It's not just founded in like our cultural language or even our historical context, but I think it was Josh that said it earlier. My identity in Christ first. So that helps me to have peace in my heart as I address each individual issue, even if the people that committed those sins were people that looked like me, even if the people that looked like me benefited from injustice. Now I, as a response to Christ, can use my position that I had nothing to do with. I didn't pick to be born 6'3" and white. That's just the lot I drew, man. But I can use what God has given me to love my neighbor, to love my brother, to love my sister, because my allegiance is not to the melanin count in my pigmentation in my skin. My allegiance is to my King and my God who made you. You know, so I don't. I think that is what has to happen, is that we have barriers that are torn down in our hearts, where my first commitment is to you, not to the person that looks like me on the street, because of what Jesus has done for us. So now that's how we link arms, and we say, okay, now together with different experiences, how do we address things issue by issue? And I think part of the I'll be transparent with you guys. I think part of the issue is just ignorance. The ignorance is unfortunate, but it doesn't seem to be like morally charged. You don't know. So if you grow up in the suburbs and you're white, you just don't know. You don't know how life has been different for somebody else. So then again, how do you? It just takes a long time to really learn and understand it, like, because it's just so different from your lived experience. Like, it just doesn't. You don't have categories for somebody being racist towards you. You don't have that mental category. So you've got to be. You're kind of stuck with this is being exaggerated, or I am completely. And most people don't really do well when they're confronted with that. And so that's, I mean, over my journey, over my lifetime, I remember sitting around listening to people share their stories. This doesn't compute. I don't have a category for this because it's not part of my experience. But these were black men and women who I highly respect, who I looked up to, who I admired, and I wanted to be like, because I had a relationship with them, because I respected them. They were people from the church, and so that was that common connection. And I'm like, man, I gotta dig deeper into this. So we actually a couple years ago did a whole series on race and gospel, and really, it was maybe not long enough, but it was at least a start of unearthing a lot of the truth of how we ended up in these situations that we're in right now, and then saying, how do we begin to address them issues. Part of the frustration that we're having as a culture right now is that we see that there's change that needs to happen, but it's not so clear what that change looks like in specific. So we're stuck with frustration, with anger, with resentment, with pain, untold amounts of pain. And the next, I think for us, especially as brothers in Christ, and as part of a larger network of ENC and Freedom Church, like we can be the first step is relationship and mutual understanding, and that's not insignificant because that's a significant stepping stone towards us moving as one to address issues. You know what I'm saying? So now, when I understand Josh's background, when I understand Ade's background or John's background, then I can say, "Dag, man, that's my brother. I'm gonna do everything I can in my power to fight to right this wrong." You know, and so I've heard this said, and I think it's very fair that you owe nobody an education, right? It's on somebody else to educate themselves about history, but it could be to your, you don't owe it to them, but it could be to your advantage because, man, once you have that, and I think that that's how God's wired us to be relationally connected. We really crush some.
Yeah, man, that's what's up. That was really really good, man. Thanks for sharing your experience and all that. And ultimately, that is what it is. It's just while you may be ignorant, as long as you're not blissfully ignorant and actually willing to step out of your comfort zone and say, "Look, this is my brother this is my brother and or sister in Christ. God has called me to love them. So how can I use what dysfunction this world may have given me to help and benefit them towards towards equality?" And I say dysfunction because obviously race and all that isn't biblical nor is it gospel. So um, anything of this world is ultimately flawed and dysfunctional. But thanks so much, Billy, for sharing that. That was really really good, man. um, so I guess we can move on to the next topic. That's actually kind of a extension of this. Temmie wanted to talk about Sequoia Turner and her murder, and just it was a really unfortunate story. I don't know if you guys heard, but from what I researched, and Temmie, you could probably fill in the stuff that I'm missing. But she was a little a little black girl who was shot by a older black man and ultimately killed. She was like maybe 4 or so years old, but it just speaks to you know the heart of man ultimately, and that even though we are in these racial places, even though we are part of this racial divide, hatred and evil can still exist within that space. Like they were both black and they could have easily linked arms or whatever, but he went out of his way, out of his own hatred, to commit this. So tell me, you could explain more on it, but that's my take.
Yeah, so I think like the whole thing was about these like protesters that had set up a barrier where Brooks, um, R- Richard Brooks, right? The guy who got murdered in the parking lot. Um, pretty
Mm-hmm.
much they set up a barrier there, and they were like, no one should like pass that place. It was like an illegal barrier, like people set up the barrier, and then I think like the girl's mother was trying to make a turn with their car, so like they went into that place and tried to make a turn, and then they opened fire at the car, sadly killing the little girl. And it was like I think like I was watching like an interview of like the girl's parents and how like broken they were at the whole situation and how it happened, and then it's like it just hit me of how like when we make decisions without like a loving and a forgiving heart and a heart that's ready to forgive, we make very, very horrible decisions. Like things that would even cancel out what we're standing for. Like these men were meant to be standing for what was right. But then because like what like the thing that was in their heart was like, man, we need to cancel this thing, and then it was just like it just caused like a horrible mistake. Like I'm sure those guys, their whole life now, they're living with that mistake. Like, man, we did this. We became a part of the problem. We became an issue. And it's like it's just so sad seeing that like when we're moving, we have to constantly check our hearts because like it's so easy to fall into one path where it's like you start making like judgments and things that are not right, and it's that's like going against what you stood for, and it goes back to what John was talking about, like double standards, and how like if we don't check yourself, you start living with double standards where it's like you do things against what we stand for.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I completely, understand about this one because in the time of the Black Lives Matter protests, like if there's anything, I mean anything on the news that regards like someone of a black person killing or shooting a black person, the immediate comments are, oh, where's black on black? I mean, where's Black Lives Matter on this one? And really, see, I really have half a mind to jump on them, but I'm like, you know what? It's 2 a.m. in the morning. I'm not getting on a Twitter fight right now.
It's
But
always at 2
it
a.m. in the
just,
morning. Like I don't understand.
oh, bro, I don't go to sleep. Sleep schedule is messed up. But yeah, like when I see those comments, it's like, all right, so what you're doing is you're taking one instance right now to basically deter an entire movement just so that it fits your agenda. And I'm just like, I'm sorry, sir, but first of all, you should be offering, your condolences instead of like, oh, this is like so bad. I'm like so sorry it happened. Instead, if your first mind is to jump on Black Lives Matter, then it's like I already know what place you're coming from, and it's a place out of hate and not love. Because when people first attack, the first thing of mine is like um attack a whole movement just because like of one issue. It's like, all right, so I know you really haven't, it hasn't resonated with you yet that these are like human, this is going through, and instead you're just using it as like an attack to promote, like the all lives matter. Like, oh, if Black Lives Matter, then this little girl wouldn't have gotten shot. And I'm just like, there are so many people in this world that die that died of violence at like any given moment. Unfortunately, there's probably some happening all around the city right now, but it doesn't mean that Black Lives Matter any less. It's just an incident. It's literally, I don't call it an incident because that's undermining her life, but it's a shooting that took place that could have happened like anywhere. Like if a white person kills a white person, are you gonna say, oh, like what happened to All Lives Matter? It's like no, like you wouldn't do that. So why would you undermine this? And the fact that they were out there like protesting when it like happened, I think I like read up on like a little bit of it. It even then like goes to undermine it a lot more. And that's what people do nowadays, like the group, like the mob mentality, the like cancel culture mentality. If they see something that helps them in their viewpoint, all morals are like out the door, and like all sense of self is out the door, all sense of like love is out the door. And if I see Christian in your bio, I'm like, take that down. Just take take it down and remove it, because it's like that's not what God would want. God calls us to love. God calls us to like love our neighbor. And how are you gonna have that in? How are you gonna have like child of God, son of God, daughter of God in your Twitter bio, but yet you're under here preaching all this hate and just looking for something to help you in your case for hate. So I never understood those comments that help undermine.
And to
Yeah,
expand
like
upon that,
one of the things.
go ahead. Oh shoot.
So what? Oh, one of the things that I also hate is people try to. Well, a when they try to politicize tragedy, but then also when they try to politicize gospel as a result of that tragedy, like as if the entire walk of Jesus and what he stood for can be confined into the American flag. Like it just doesn't make any kind of sense. It's like when people try to say, you know, anti, it's like when those people came to campus and they were like, go to hell, all of you who are not, and then they had a list where it's like ultimately they're doing that for their own like political gain. And then also when especially when it comes to the LGBTQ plus community. It's like obviously we know what the gospel says about it, but that doesn't mean that we're not called to love them as well and to lead them towards Christ first. And then if God deems it worthy, if God deems it worthy to change their heart, then so be it. I've seen both sides. Tim and I were talking about this yesterday. Like I've seen both sides of the spectrum. I've seen openly LGBTQ pastors who are leading other LGBTQ people towards Christ. I've seen people like Jackie Hill Perry who denounced that attraction, but still lead people towards Christ. At the end of it, it doesn't matter what they who they love or not. The end goal is that they're leading people towards Christ with the heart that Christ has given them, because that's ultimately what the end goal is. So when people try to be like, God hates, FAGs, go to hell, whatever, that pushes it so far away from it's intended to be. Because the gospel, I like to call the gospel, is kind of like it's like cautionary love. It's like, yes, God is love. If you repent, God will love you, whatever. But if you don't repent, this will happen. And that's ultimately what it is. But people try to politicize it and be like, if you don't believe this, and this, then you're gonna go to hell. Or if you are this or this or this, then you're not Christian. When the threshold is just so much like, yeah, I don't know. Like people try to humanize and politicize something that extends beyond race, beyond affiliation, beyond all of that. And then there's like all these people that are walking around that are lost because of that narrative that's been pushed. And it's unfortunate to see, especially when you look at celebrities like, Joey Badass recently, and other people like him who I would argue have been led astray by the teachings of this overly politicized, or I guess Americanized version of the gospel.
Yeah, bro, and like to carry on from what I'll talk about both points, but from like what Josh said earlier, like two things can be true. Like just like we talk about the crime, and like I said before, the crime in the community is like, for example, Kendrick, right? He works hard to fight and better Compton in general, knowing about the crimes communities, and also is with Black Lives Matter. We can still fight both if we have the resources, of course, and the money, of course. But not all of us have that. So like not all of us had that same impact that the people that do have money can do. So trying to blame it on us, talk about, oh, where are we now with this happening, as if we're ignoring it, when we're really not. It's just that we don't have that amount of power to do things in those communities as we are now. That's not our fault. And then when it comes to the Christianity thing, like I've noticed that, like I've seen a lot of people talk about how in the past, when it came to the slave masters, they used Christianity to I think what to like to subdue some of the slaves. So most people are having
Mm-hmm.
iffy about that, since most people don't even know their exact where they came from. Like most people don't even know what country they came from in Africa. They just know that they're black due to be coming from Africa and be taken from their home. And so they think like Christianity is kind of like in a negative aspect because it was used by white slave masters against the slaves themselves, which isn't really a fair aspect because you can really it's not the same now. So you have a choice to be Christian or not. Before it might not have been as a choice before, and they think it's like an impact in the black community, which is why some people have this think a political aspect against Christianity. And the one last thing I'll speak about is the Joy Badass thing. And like I said, I told y'all last night about, like, as a Haitian, like we know all about the voodoo dark arts. It's just saying nothing a foreign concept to me, and you know what I'm saying. So I've always stayed away from that, and I've always knew that it's not from God at all. It's voodoo, bro, and like it's just something to stray away from. And I know some people are trying to go in that road, but not recommended. But yeah, that's all.
Yeah, that road is so that, like, I've noticed with this whole push in Black Lives Matter, especially, there's been kind of a callback to those kinds of dark forms of spirituality, like I have friends that practice like with tarot cards and voodoo and all those kinds of things. And the the number one thread that I can pull from why they do it is because they either have a Catholic background or went to Catholic school and unfortunately experienced trauma in those settings. and but then and then obviously going back to that narrative that John was saying about slave masters, they equate that with, oh well, that wasn't how we intended it to be, so we should instead do a callback, which is then when you get people like what Joey Badass did, like where he's not only partaking in things like voodoo, but he's also using symbols like the all-seeing eye, the sulfur cross, like things like that, and trying to like rebrand it into these symbols for like black pride and like originality and all these weird, different things like that. And it's always interesting to think about, because for that argument in particular, I say it like this. It's like, if somebody were to hit you on the head with a hammer, would you blame them or would you blame the hammer? And it's the same thing with Christianity. It's like, if slave masters used it and perverted it for their own selfish desires and for their own wrongful desires, are you blaming them or are you blaming the religion? Because Jesus, as we all know, is the exact opposite of that. Like he would never call for those kinds of atrocities or those kinds of things like that. But but just like how a lot of conservative Americans unfortunately do, they twisted the gospel and used it for their own gain. But people oftentimes don't want to hear it because they always equate, you know, Christianity with like submitting to a white man, and then there's the whole argument about like white Jesus and all that kind of stuff, and you guys already know about that. But I just think people got to be careful, especially with this new like come up of Black Power, I guess, because you know it can lead to a lot of dark spiritual experimentation.
You saw it. Hey, Billy?
What's up, Billy?
Oh, no. As I said, I mean, yeah, there are like two sides to like every entity. There's two sides, and there are black extremists and there are white extremists. We can't act like they don't exist, because like they do. I've seen plenty of like people in the comments saying, "Oh, don't ever like do this." I guess like one good thing. I mean, one example could be like Mr. Dr. Umar Johnson. A lot of people take what it's like. You'd be surprised. It's like a lot of people take like just to heart. Like, oh, I'm not saying like he's an extremist, but like those views people take and then they amplify. So, and the same can be said for like the other side, for like the white extremist views. Like they take what they hear from other people and they and they amplify it, and that's when it becomes black power versus white power, instead of equality for black people and white people realizing that, oh, I have this type of power to really help and I can really get educated. But unfortunately, the people have the power don't want to be educated, because as you said, they like sort of like twisted the gospel to believe what they're doing is right in their sort of their own eyes and not really God's eyes. And then like getting back to the whole issue with like undermining, is like I really hate it when like as you said, the gospel gets twisted in forms of like tragedy and in forms of like justice, because like I always hear from the like the white extremists and like the conservatives saying, oh, in the Bible God says, and God wouldn't want you to like do this. And I mean, it's like they do say forgive, but then they like push it like further, and it's like, oh, you need to like do this, you need to like do that. And I'm just like, if you're gonna use the Bible to like quote something, yeah, if you're gonna use like quotes from the Bible, at least like use it right and don't twist it, because they twist it because they know it's not right in God's eyes, and God wouldn't want it to be used like that. But they're using it to further their own goals, like undermine the whole Black Lives Matter. Because that's like every time I see like a response to Black Lives Matter, I literally click on their profile and I literally see the American flags, and then I see like a Bible verse underneath it, and I'm just like, I'm literally like, come on, be better. Like, come on, that hard. And yeah, Billy.
Did you know that like when white people came to Africa, and I'm just speaking from Nigerian history, um, people actually sold themselves for wealth. So like a mirror, they hadn't seen a mirror before, so they sold their own people to get a mirror. So it was like black people were selling black people. Then like the kings would sell their whole tribe just to gain this thing that they have never seen before. So it's like it's just it's just a really messy history, you know? It's like if you go all the way back, you see like the faults of all men. And it's like, dang, everyone is at fault at some way, at some shape, at some form. White people came with deception, and black people came with greed, and it's just like, and then with the whole thing of spirituality, like I know, like in Nigeria, because I haven't been to other places in Africa, but in Nigeria, and definitely every places in Africa that you know that is a Christian, um, Christianity is in those places. Those people who are Christians, they didn't just become Christians overnight. They turned to Christianity because they saw the worthlessness of their their past gods. Because like my mom tells me every time of how her dad used to have idols, and she was like a Christian, and then her dad could see like, man, this God that she's serving is not a joke, because like he began to see the worthlessness of the gods that he was serving. So it's pretty much like there were missionaries that went to do work that did the right thing. Some people went there, wrong intentions, wrong interpretations of the Bible, went there and messed up places, but there were still people who sowed the right seed. And that's why you have like African churches that are like pretty on fire for God, because like if you try to tell me to go back to my African spirituality, man, that's not good. Like all that stuff is messy. Like I still know till this day, like African spirituality, people that still engage in that stuff, and they mess up the whole country. Like people are dying here and there, people are turning into tubers of yam. Like what? So it's like there there were people who sowed good seed in those places.
Billy, even one second, and then you can go, because I just was brought back to another thing that they try and we always talk about how there's like how we've been suffering for 400 years because of slavery. The one thing people will always go back to religiously is, oh, like didn't black people also sell other black people into slavery? And like what you were just talking about like really brought back like the memory of like the arguments that I used to have. And it's like, yes, it did happen, and you're like, yeah, the nature of man is like messy so many years into like everything that's been done in order to like survive and get like wealth and monetary like things that really don't last and that aren't worth the life of a human. But yeah, I really hate it's all about like undermining and like in like directly saying, oh well, and it gets to a big point of like, oh well, he did it or like she did it, and everyone's like that office gift where everyone's like and, like everyone's like everyone's like pointing at each other, and it's like it doesn't just because you're pointing at like another thing. It's like, oh, it's like he did it, but it's like the teacher will always punish both of you, and more often than not, it's the last person who did it that gets the worst punishment, and it's like it doesn't make it any less morally correct, or oh well you guys did it too, so that makes us like lesser's like no, you still part, it's like your ancestors still did this, and the fact that you're refusing to ignore it by pointing out the fact that black people also did it is just saying that you really don't have a grasp on on what happened and why it's wrong. And it's just when it's like tattling at this point. Go ahead, Billy.
Wait, please. I'm sorry. I didn't make cut before you go.
Yeah.
Quick history lesson, real quick. A quick history lesson. Yeah, first off,
Yeah.
when black slaves got other black slaves, it wasn't because of race, alright? It was because of wars, because in this wars, you take slaves from your enemies if they surrender as war slaves. Again, when they keep using examples are not racially pushed, every time to the mind, racially pushed stuff is foolish, alright? I'm gonna say that real quick. You can go ahead, Billy.
Gotta speak that fact.
Right? If you're a student of history, you cannot walk away without feeling like you want and it is like Western European history. It is a people thing, like awful. And so I think in our current context, and especially this conversation, where it's like how do we right this wrong? And I think that's appropriate. We need to zoom lens in on this because it's such an issue. But yeah, man, I just think that we, especially as believers, just can't be naive about human nature. And that every person apart from God is desperately wicked. And we'll look for ways to subjugate others for your, and that has taken very attacks, and that we're living with now, right? We're living in the effects of our forefathers, and it's really up to us as this generation to say how do we right those wrongs and see real justice come to our time. Um, but yeah, man, I've seen this returning back to African spirituality um, before, like just being out on campus talking to people. And one guy, he was, tell me you're from Nigeria, kind of neighbors is Ghana. Right? I was talking to one guy, he's like, oh, I've got Ghanaian roots, and he's going back and worshiping, getting some of the amulets and looking into God. I think a lot of you guys correct me if I'm wrong, comes out of like Haiti. It's really West African in origin, so they're pretty much they're but similar. It's really what you would consider paganism, and that has existed in every culture. Like England, pagan. You go back, you have pagan Greek and Roman gods, and we know from the scripture in like First Corinthians we're talking about anything offered to an idol is offered to a demon, and so that is ultimately going to lead to this horrible, horrible, horrible subjugation, right? Spiritual manipulation and just more and more offerings until eventually you have to kill. That's where it always ends up in idolatry. Even the ancient Israelites, they would kill their children before the gods of Molech. So that's where that ultimately always devolves into. And because the devil hates people, so he's going to manipulate you one way or the other. Anyway, I'm kind of getting off track into more like the theology. That I understand why people will look back if they're looking. I looked at like for an identity. Who am I? What does it mean for me to be black, right? If that's the question that's being asked, especially if tell me you're in a different spot, you're from Nigeria and now in America. But if you're, as far as back as you go, African American or descendant of slave, like that, you're stripped. Your ethnic, tribal, national identity was eradicated from you in a violent and disgusting way. And so now people are trying to reckon with what does it mean for me to be me, and they're looking back to things that will really actually lead them so far away from God. It's just sad. I mean, I'll take you the guy. I talked to him on campus. He's like, yeah, I'm going back to this Ghanaian spirituality. And then I talked to one of my buddies. He's an OG ENC guy, Nana from Ghana. And man, he Chale, no man, this is bad news. Like he says, my family has escaped generational curses from this kind of idol worship, and we have had to break spiritual bonds over our family, our lives, and I don't want to see that happen to this guy. And I tried to connect them so that they could talk about that. But I that for us, as the messiness comes in, is that a lot of these things are tied. They're not clean categories. Like if it's just we could just talk about theology. Okay, we can talk about what's true about the nature of God, who is God, how does Jesus stack up, ancestor worship, or these charms or amulets or tarot cards. But I think, at the principle level, we're all seeking an identity, and we're all seeking an experience of the transcendent. Really, what is power? And I see that in what's it? Joey Badass in his like kind of little statement there. He said, "In search of rebirth and power." And I think that the devil will always offer us those two things in a way that seems like a shortcut, where we're still in control, but we're actually being manipulated. And Jesus will offer that to us through dying to ourselves, so that we can receive the gospel. And that's how we actually receive a rebirth, a real identity that is full of peace and of joy and of real power. Like how Corinthians talks about, he isn't, the gospel's not a matter of talk, but a matter of power. So I think that that's something that we as a group as need to remember, that God has given us real power. Like, bro, if I find people messing with tarot cards, I like to call it the whole showdown. I'm like, oh, you think those things work? Why don't you put those away for a second and let's try prayer? And I'm just gonna start praying. I'll pray. I mean, if they're open to spiritual experiences, bro, pray in tongues. I'd be like, actually, you know that when you encounter the Spirit of God, He gives you a new language to speak, and then begin to prophesy over each person. And because I want that, if they want to have a spiritual encounter of power, then far be it from me if I have the Holy Spirit, the power that rose Christ from the dead, to bring the power of God to them. But I've got to make sure that I'm walking in a place of love, not out of judgment and righteousness or self-righteousness. But, oh, I have the truth, you need to know it. And then also, like, man, I'm a clean vessel, so I'm prepared to pour out. And I love the Holy Spirit model. It's just, hey, you got the Holy Ghost. One of us is going to win because my God is alive. And that's not a slight on anybody's culture. That's not a slight on anybody's background. That's just to say, the theological level, there's only one God. His name is Jesus. And we got to be confident in that, no matter what our background is. And because this is the one who brings hope. This kind of, John, you mentioned it earlier. Like, we've got to tear down these narratives, that Jesus is not Jesus was dark skinned, curly hair, Jewish man. He's probably about 5'3", and he would blend into any crowd he walked around in. He wasn't special. He wasn't good looking, is what the Bible said. Like he wasn't a tall dude. Like in fact, just pointing him out with a kiss. That means he's been doing all this stuff all the time, and he still didn't stick out that much, right? So he had to get the officials to come in and identify him. So, I think that we got to be real in our own hearts first, so that when accusation comes about, oh this, oh that, like we can just say, hey, I'm not that God either, right? That's not the God that I worship. So high five, we're on the same page. Well, let me tell you about Jesus that I worship. And man, guys, again, emphatically, I just want to say yes and amen to the Bible does not support slavery. Can we just get that out? Like the whole Exodus, the greatest theme in the whole scripture is Exodus, right? That the echoes of Exodus went all the way through the New Testament. Is a book about how God set slaves in the New Testament. Whole book about something similar. Philemon, an escaped slave that he sends back to his master with the gospel, and basically says, Paul says, you need to set him free as a conviction of the gospel. That's powerful. So we need to understand our own perspective, and we need to understand the scripture so that can speak to our current context. And every worldview should be judged by its abuse by its core tenets. There's always will be evil people who will abuse something for their good. They'll twist it, they'll manipulate it. That's just, again, that's a human thing, and that's why that happened. Evil men would do that in the slave trade, and to try and have power to subjugate people. And that's damnable, man. How dare they ever use the name of Jesus to treat? That is, there's got to be a special punishment. So how dare you speak in the name of God? I mean, it's so sickening to see. But I think for us, man, we got to have conviction. Like, man, you don't believe in that God? Great. I don't either. So let me tell you about how I do believe.
Yeah, that's powerful, man. That's real powerful. Just,
Holy Spirit showdown.
I mean, hey, man, real talk. Like you feel mad power when people when you pray in tongues. Like I know that y'all probably
Oh,
experienced
come on, man.
that. Like hella power. But
I was
that's awesome.
in the Wild Wild West. We get two people that like pace each other out and they turn around and fire. That's in my head, bro. You get your demons. That's fine. You get your car. Fine. I serve the living God. Be like Elijah calling down fire. Oh, just scream louder. Is he asleep? And then all I say is, Lord, and then boom.
Dang. You convicted Matt. You're about to convict Matt people when we run this back on the YouTube, man. But that's good though. That's mad dope. But let's move on to the last topic of the day, which is from Josh, and
Oh.
you talking about how they robbing us and trying to put us back in places when the virus isn't even gone yet, and especially in freaking like college, bro. Like, look, man, I gotta. I'm really about to spend $40,000 to stay in my house this semester. Like, yeah, this is freaking crazy.
Yeah, but yeah, I was talking about as I kept on seeing like schools are being open. Everyone's forcing people to really like get back in like the swing of things when people aren't ready, and then the CDC is gonna get mad because they're like, why isn't everyone staying at home? And then it's literally gonna be, I'm telling you, that office gift. There's an office gift for everything. People gonna be pointing at each other with the little guns, saying, why are we open? Oh, because they want us to be open. Why are we getting corona? Because they want us to open, and the CDC is getting mad at the government for having everyone open. It's going to be a mess, and it's just like they're prioritizing, money and education over morals, especially in college, because college is a business. So it's like they're thinking about the students and professors last. And for me, it's weird because when you're thinking about college professors, there are some old college professors out here teaching students, and I'm just like, so are y'all not at risk? Like, shouldn't you be staying home unless you specifically requested for your class to be online? Because I know there's a lot of online classes happening. So it's like, I don't know, but there are also some in-person classes. So if there's elderly professors in class, how is that going to work? Because I guarantee you, college student is going to wake up in the morning and the first thing they're going to do is test their temperature and being like, oh, 98.6. All right, I'm ready to go. No one's doing that. Barely even wash their hands when they wake up. Don't even brush their teeth. No, they're not going to be taking their temperature. Like,
Yo,
Bill, you're laughing. It's like, it's like,
real
bro,
talk. Kids be musty
oh,
in those morning classes, bro. Like I'm
I'm telling you, you really think they want to have enough hygiene to take their temperature in the morning? I don't even think people are bringing their own thermometers unless it's required by temple. I don't understand it. But yeah, it's like they're just gonna keep on doing all of this. I heard Bessie DeVois, the director of like education. I don't even know what her. I honestly really don't care. But she said, "Oh, there's only like only 12, only like I think it was like 0.12, like it wasn't a high, but it was like enough that it was like still 12,000 kids have the chance of dying." And it's like you're really gonna pull out that statistic and sit there and it's like, oh, it's only it's only Godzilla that's just outside. It's like, no. It's like, no, you can't, like, even a small percentage is still a percentage of people at risk. The fact that they're moving it so quickly is like, all right, so we clearly understand all the words back then when you're like, oh, guys, we'll get through this safely together. It's like, no, we're not all in this together. We're not going to be like singing hands and dancing and like kumbayaing ourselves back into, uh, um, into how it was before because you're rushing us back. And it's at the end of the day, they can say, oh, we think it's going down. Nah, I know 10-minute state is heated right now because they got cases out the wazoo. I know Arizona's mad. I know Texas I know Florida's mad. Philadelphia, the cases are
Throw
rising. I
Florida
just got like
away,
a
bro.
notification a couple of seconds ago, and it's like you think it's over, but it's not. And the fact that for some reason guys have the ability just like try and like play God and said, oh, this is all going away, we're gonna shove you guys back in there and it's gonna be all right. It's like, nah, it's about the money. Don't lie.
like you literally can't have college like being socially distanced. Like think about all the things that we had last year, like like the like all the elevators that are in Anderson Hall, like the all the dining halls, uh, all the club fairs, like Temple Fest, whatever. Like you can't do that and be 6 feet and be 6 feet apart. And I don't know if you saw Josh, but on Temple's Instagram, they put pictures up of what the year's gonna be like.
Yeah, I know.
The-
I know exactly.
These these fools these fools drawing like white circles in the grass and like putting restrictions on the elevators and like pushing the tables like all the way apart, putting 2 seats on each table. Like what are y'all doing? Like seriously?
We're modifying the lecture hall,
And
making sure like all the people are going to be sitting like one or like 2 or 3 seats away from each other. And I was like, I understand that this is what's going to happen, but I'm telling you, I want to say by September, no one is on it. And Temple's going to be one, and then Temple, Drexel, Penn, every other college, and it's not even about the colleges; it's about the daycares. It's like you can't put
facts.
masks on children. And I know, like children, they don't know any better, but these children literally cough like they're yelling. They don't cover their hands. It's like a, so it's like, it's literally it's like they will cough like they'll literally cough out loud or pick their nose and try and shake someone's hand over sharing animal crackers. I was like, and it's like, you really think that this is an okay thing? Like, you have enough sickness in daycares without corona in the past. You really think this is a great idea to put all of these children who exhibit these like dirty but not on purpose behaviors? It's like, come on,
Hey, bro, it's
Yeah.
America's fault at the same
I've heard
time, bro.
stories.
But they're making everything a conspiracy theory. You talk about, yeah, but why we need masks for, bro? It's not gonna protect us. We talk about like it's 99% survival rate. We don't need masks. I'm like, bro, it's a piece of cloth, bro. Like, yo, we are the only country that's still going through this, bro. How China, where the virus came from, chilling where we are, but that doesn't even make sense. How Florida got more cases in the entire country? Like, y'all don't see how it's not working. This conspiracy that the government is making y'all wear masks. Oh, it's a hoax, bro.
I
How is
mean,
it a hoax, bro? What do you mean? Your brother's coughing right now, bro. You talk about it's a hoax, bro. What do you mean, bro? Like, alright, yo.
like, I mean, and like in all honesty, I will give a pass to Texas and Arizona, but Florida's been wilding out for decades. It's like they should have
Yeah.
you should have seen you should have seen Florida having the most cases, and like they deserve to be like, the Bugs Bunny gift that deserved to happen a long time ago, and it still needs to happen because Florida just listen. Florida don't listen to no one but them.
Yo, Florida needs
It's
to get cut off.
it's
See,
Florida and it's like Florida and California right now that got the most.
California got
oh, and it's
locked
the
down
fact that it's
again.
like they're gonna be opening like areas in Florida. Disney World is open. They opened up
I
Disney.
saw that.
With no
And I was
rights.
like, I was like, bro, like you really just opened up. I'm telling you, Disney wants that money because Disney World is where they make the biggest amount of bucks. It's like that's how they fund all these actors. It's like you do all this. It's coming from your pocket. You coming from your pockets in Disney World, and I'll see all these people like, oh, we got this. You can't go to where the NBA bubble is because they cut that place off. It's like they like slice like Disney World, kind of like, or
Yeah.
if they put a chunk away for the NBA players, I know they're having fun like the NBA bubble, bro. You saw my stories. I'm enjoying that. I'm enjoying the bubble so much.
Yo,
Some
the memes,
what's it called? Um,
the bubble memes when they ordered food to the
oh,
bubble and then people were snitching.
Rashawn Holmes got put back in quarantine 2 days ago because he accidentally stepped outside the line to get Postmates. So we had to get back into quarantine. So it's like, bro, the stories that are coming out of this bubble are hilarious. But like back on topic, it's like the fact that they even opened up Disney World shows that like the United States is really moving to a point where it's more about like money, and that's where you start getting into like how God calls us not to like idolize things and not make like false idols. Apparently in this country, one of the biggest idols is money. So it's like they see it as like the like ding 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 winner winner winner. He or she who has the most money is like sitting on top of everything. But it's like you can't when you die, you can't take those possessions with you. So I don't understand what's the big rush. You're literally putting lives over money that you really can't take to. Because once you're called up, or it's like where are you taking that money to? Where are you taking this Lamborghini to? Like you're not gonna be driving your way up to heaven. I know that. I know that. I know that much. It's like there's no highway that you can take that you can bring your Lamborghini or all your fancy houses. So it's like why rush this Corona thing and putting everyone back into like how it was before? And it's like everyone is saying, and especially the government's like, guys, it's gonna be different. Like the world, like this is the new normal, but you're trying to make the new normal the normal. That's like that's my thing. You're trying to make the new normal the past, and it's like I don't understand the correlation. I really don't.
Yeah, and well, going back to what you said too about making false idols, the Bible also does say that the love of money is the root of all evil too. So you take that into consideration. You know, obviously these people love their money so much to put people in jeopardy. And then, but that also begs the question too. It's like, if y'all are this hungry for money, then how broke were y'all when we were in college? Because if they was chilling, then there wouldn't be like Harvard put all their stuff online. Even though they're charging full tuition, they're still like they're not getting housing deposits. They're not getting whatever external things outside of tuition. Like they're cool. So like were y'all just not spending the money well, or like were you broke secretly, or like what's the push
Has
for it?
like a over $1 billion endowment.
Exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
for their university, they're not taxed on it. So these major Ivy leagues, I mean, it's almost a racketeering job. Um, Malcolm Gladwell, I mean, like for you guys or anybody else, he's this very scathing critique of higher education, especially the Ivies. But yeah, the Harvard is not hurting. But some of these other schools, and like they're trying to expand so fast to keep up and get their brand name out there. You know, they were, of course, budgeting for no global pandemic, and they don't have a $2 billion endowment. They're probably spending their money to make more money by expanding. And so, like I know for sure, Drexel has a massive income stream through housing, and the housing is overpriced. It's required for the first 2 years, and it's just they're basically expanding the university off the backs of students to, uh, and it's just it's not fair. It's just ugly expansion. Honestly, it's just whack. That's the way I can put it. But a lot of these schools, man, I know you hit the nail on the head. They're just not managing their money right. But to compare every school to Harvard, that's a little bit under.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't necessarily like saying, well, Harvard's managing their money well or whatever. I'm just saying that like in terms of endowment size, like Harvard's able to do that because they have that whatever number of billion endowment. Like they're able to, take a year off, which does obviously speak to, the whole thing about Ivies and how really they're not that different from regular college. Like I got friends and cousins that are like at Princeton, Harvard, Yale, whatever. And the weird thing about it is a lot of them companies now are actually like starting to not hire people from Ivy leagues because my mom works in human resources for companies and she says they don't look to people like MIT, Harvard, whatever because they have no social skills because they spend all their time studying and doing their books and whatever and they don't talk to people.
That's
I'm being dead serious. Like she was interviewing one dude from MIT who like wouldn't look her in the eye. Like he was like all up like this and like yes and I have like like you know what I mean. And but dude had like all the credentials, like bachelors, club fairs, whatever. But he just couldn't talk to people, so they couldn't hire him.
Yeah, this all could be a part of like since the government does not fund education as much as they should be, they rather fund the military. So schools are already underfunded in the first place to be prepared for these situations. So we already have disadvantage for education in America in general.
Yeah, the whole thing is just so whack. But going back to the NBA thing, we could talk about that last before we log off. But yo, some of these memes that I've been seeing
I didn't
of
even check
like,
that last topic. I didn't even check that.
so what,
I didn't
John?
I didn't even check the last topic for being fun. I was just talking about the NBA bubble in general. I didn't even realize that was the last topic.
Yeah, it was, but not like. First of all, I didn't even know that the NBA was like actually opening back up. I thought they were all like players were all up in arms about it, but I guess not. But I mean,
It was a
I
debate.
the one that I saw like the one that I saw that was most hilarious was the people that were snitching on people for ordering food and like going outside the perimeter and stuff like that.
People said Chris
Bro,
Paul.
I was seeing memes on like Twitter as soon as Bleacher Report tweeted out that there have been many reports and they put reports in quotations because everyone knows was snitching. There have been many reports to the NBA bubble hotline about players violating, and underneath it, LeBron was on his phone tweeting, "Yo, I saw Kawhi leaving the bubble for some food." And then I saw everyone was talking about how like D'Angelo Russell and CP3 were out here having fun because they're like the two biggest snitches in the
Of Discord.
just CP3. So he's his own person. But yeah, these stories, man, they are hilarious. I'm loving every second of it. Oof.
Yo,
Man, I'm serious.
but at the same time, it's like, what did y'all expect was gonna happen? Like, you got all these big grown men in this tiny little bubble. You expect every single one of them to follow the rules?
Yeah. I mean, if they want to play,
The food they're eating.
They wanna-
exactly with the food that they're getting. Like, come on now.
I mean, if they want to play, they will. And if you get sent back home, it's like I think in the NBA, like if you get sent back home, you're not playing. So it's like, are you getting paid for the rest of the year? So I mean, it's like kind of have that little hold on them. I mean, look, if it was me, I would like I would like look on my little Disney map and be like, all right, so this is where I can't go, and let me step 1 foot out there. Like LeBron's like, I see you. And it's like I mean it's like if you really think about it, it could be a good tactic to get what you want, because it's like if before a game you have your little binoculars outside your window, you could just be like, hey yo, this person, and it's like, oh, I don't got worried about Joel no more, and it's like all right, and it's like Joel's gonna be like, oh, what do I do? And it's like, bro, I got you on tape. Like, I got you on tape. Like if the Celtics want to take out the Sixers, that's a perfect one, because I know Johnny.
Yeah,
It
nah,
is what it is.
He said it is what it is. Nah, I'm enjoying the vlogs though. They look like they're having fun in Disney World. And it's like, bro, I wish I could get paid to go golfing. Like, I don't know if you're aware of this, but the best rookie in the NBA in terms of personality, Matisse Thybulle, he has vlogs about inside the bubble on YouTube. Just search on Matisse
I
Thybulle.
watched some of those. I
Hey,
watched some
yo,
of
bro,
those.
I'm literally loving how they're interacting, what they have to go through, like their little like bands that they have to wear. It's camp. It's camp for NBA players. They have to check in and check out. They have to get like their food. They're all walking together, and I'm like, bro, like it's like those camps that make you wear like the same T-shirt when you go out to Disney World. it's like
Always do something that's so ugly too. It's like that mad bright yellow or like that mad bright orange or something that's like just super ugly.
It's like so and so day camp. That's literally what they're wearing, but it's their jerseys and their clothes. It's like if you see a bunch of people who are like 6'3" walking around Disney, it's like, oh, those are the NBA players. They don't even gotta wear little camp shirts. It's like, oh, I see. Is that Anthony Davis on LeBron? Yeah, who else is gonna be 6'8", 230, just chilling on a water slide?
The funniest one what makes me laugh about this isn't even what's really happening; it's what I think is happening. Like in my
Exactly.
mind, like the funniest thing that I could ever imagine is Kawhi Leonard like snitching on somebody. That's the most hilarious thing I could ever think of, man. Because he's because he's like so.
Bro came late and everything, yo.
Because Kawhi is like so like just dead face with it. Like he has no other.
Kawhi was smiling at 2 days ago. They captioned him smiling like on Bleach Report. It was like all smiles, and no, there was like something fun guy, and you saw like Kawhi just smiling, and I was like, is this Photoshop? Is Kawhi actually happy
Yeah,
to
that
be?
meant Kawhi was actually
Maybe
just
he's
having a
happy because he
blast.
gets to snitch. But yeah, it's like, bro, it's like what I think is happening is why this is so hilarious because like you hear all of these things happening, and it's like this is exactly if this was like Bad Girls Club or if it was like it's like hip hop and I forgot what like the names of those reality TV shows are, but I
Love and hip
really
hop.
think I love it hip hop, bro. This is a reality TV series that we don't know about, so we gotta imagine what's happening. Like literally,
Yeah.
like there's probably a cameraman off to the side taking like the close-up confession shots of like the players. Like Joel's like, today was a pretty good day. I got to chill with Matisse. It was pretty cool. I saw LeBron, but I really don't care about LeBron. But I feel like it's like that. I feel like it's like that, and that's what makes it so hilarious because all of them are in the same area, different floors of a hotel probably. It's like the same area, and I'm like, yo, this is hilarious. They can't even be near each other because what's it called? For I think it was Tobias's birthday a couple of days ago, and they literally had to decorate his door from like across the hallway, and you could see like the balloons and everything. And it's like, bro, this is actually hilarious. Like this is actually a thing that's going on right now.
Yeah, man.
How long? How long is it going to take for them to come out with a documentary called Bubble?
Oh, I'm waiting.
I'd love to see
I'm
that.
waiting.
Wait,
I
what
would
was it?
love to see that. He said how long was it? How
I
long?
was going to say how long until they come out with the documentary?
I couldn't hear that.
I
You
don't
said
know how long.
How long would it take for them to come out with a documentary called The Bubble?
Oh, how long would it, bro? I'm telling you, at the end, I'm telling. So they made MJ's The Last Dance. I would not be surprised if there was like an NBA social media team just like compiling all this footage and like releasing a document from like each team's perspective on the bubble, like sometime down the road. Like I want to say either before or like after the finals as like sort of like a cumulative like, oh, here, look at an inside look on what's happening now on ESPN Plus. They got to get that extra money, so they're going to make it for that extra footage on the bubble. You know how you know how. Hey, look, ESPN is run by Disney. Look, you can't trust them. ESPN might be cake. But,
Josh, what do you just do? You just gave them an idea. Don't you know they were watching?
look, ESPN.
I mean, look, if they're smart, they're already doing it.
Look, if ESPN is watching this, they're probably already doing that. But if you haven't done it and you're watching this, I want to cut. I want a job at ESPN. Let me replace Stephen A. Smith on First Take.
Okay, hold on now.
Slow down, fuckaroo.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean? You play Steve A. Smith?
let me get that spot because he's getting a little old up there. His hairline is a little.
Nah, bro, you gotta let him retire. Nobody can just take his job. He needs to retire
All
first.
right. After he retires, I mean, you're still going to take his spot regardless because someone else got hired. You can't be sitting there forever like Skip.
But it's different. But it's different though, because Stephen A. by all means is like the majority of. Aside from Shannon,
He's carrying ESPN on his shoulders.
Yeah, he carries ESPN on his shoulders. Aside from Sharp and Shannon, like Stephen A. Smith carries that entire show. That entire network.
He said Sharp and Shannon.
Yeah, Sharp and Shannon's on Fox, bro.
Yeah, Shannon and Sharp. Yeah.
He said Sharp and Shannon. thought you were trying to
Just
say
say
Clippers, man.
undisputed, bro. Undisputed, bro. Kevin Fox, yo.
I thought that's what he was gonna say, but now I feel like it's
Yeah.
gonna be interesting seeing the games.
Yeah.
Like, how are you gonna? It's like because they have like to mop up like the sweat when someone falls on the floor, and you're gonna have like the person running with like the towels. So it's like, how are you gonna? So there's so many things that like they're thinking of that like come game day, it's gonna be like it's gonna be really difficult because like their water bottles are gonna have to be like put somewhere else to make sure that someone doesn't accidentally like use someone else's water bottle, like the towels, the mopping up like the floors. Just gonna it's gonna be interesting, especially like the body collisions because it does happen when like someone's like elbow gets in like someone's face and if they start bleeding, you're gonna have to be like, oh, we gotta do this. You're quarantined for like a day. That next day is the finals. LeBron would be heated if he got quarantined. So
Imagine
The
right before
hardest
the
part
finals
is
gets
gonna.
quarantined. Oh yeah, that's
Oh
raps.
man, yo, but real talk. The hardest part of this is gonna be like when players start to beef. Because think about it, you think about when you start beefing, you can't like touch them or hit them or whatever. You gotta like take that to Twitter. Like you remember when LeBron blocked uh Steph Curry's shot and then look back at him like smiling. Like you can't do anything after that. You just gotta eat that until you go back to the locker room.
the one player I'm gonna be watching during this entire time is Joel. Because I know everybody wants to come at Joel. If it's gonna be settled on Twitter, Joel's gonna win. Joel was undefeated on Twitter. I do not care on Instagram, on Twitter. Joel was the troll king. Come at him on the court all you want to, but as soon as you get off the court, bro, them Twitter fingers turn to trigger fingers. Or trigger fingers turn to Twitter fingers. There we go.
Twitter fingers.
There we go. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I'm gonna like it because you can't fight, so it's like all the scuffles and on the ground. It's like you saw what happened to Ben Simmons, Joel, and what's his name, Utah boy, Heidi's, Donovan Mitchell. There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, like they got into that whole like tussle, and it's like you can't do that anymore.
Yeah. Is the NFL opening back up too? Like with the same thing?
I doubt it. I
They're
doubt
probably
it. The
no
NFL,
fans.
there's too many players. There's too many people on the ground at once. The NBA, I get it because like I think there's like 24 people on a team for the NFL. There's like a 90-man roster, and then I think like I feel like it's like 50. No, it trims down to a 53-man roster, and then a certain amount of them suit up for game day, which is still a lot, and that involves tackling. So it's like you're gonna be tackling. In the NBA, you can't tackle people, but when it comes to like the NFL, you actually have to make physical contact, and that's when it's gonna get dicey because a lot of people have already tested positive. Like Zeke tested positive for Corona. I don't think he wanted to like get out. HIPAA's involved with that. But for just because of that, if you're a running back and you're like all those big body pileups, nah, CDC would be like, you're done for the season. So I don't know how it's gonna go. Apparently for the Philadelphia Eagles, if they do it, it's gonna be in a stadium without fans, which I'm literally gonna just be like at home twiddling my thumbs because I like the crowd and the roaring. So I'm just gonna be like, all I hear is silence. Like this is gonna be unnerving.
And grunts.
I still don't know how they're gonna do that because like the majority, half of what sports is the fans. So if you just watching people run into each other with no fans, it's like awkward.
Bro,
Come
get the
on, bro,
Madden
it's gonna be
sounds, bro.
quiet.
The Madden sounds.
Because the
What are you
play,
talking about?
You could always be the Falcons and try and amplify your crowd sounds like they did in the past while they got in trouble. You could do that. It's like everyone's going to know because there's not people in the stands. So I mean, really, but
but the players like feed off of that. The players feed off that energy too. So if they're like there's no kind of motivation because think about it, there's no more home stadiums, there's no fans, there's nothing there's nothing that appears to be at stake in those games.
I mean, it's just going to test who wants it more then, because you're all going to be on the same. There's no more advantage. It's like if you want to be the better competitor, it's like you're going to like go out without fans. I make those one hand catches and not expect to see fans cheering you on. So I mean, I guess
Yeah.
it's going to like test to see it's like who wants it more, who's gonna use their own motivation and use your team's motivation. But aside from that, it's going to be interesting come sports time, see what's going on. I know WWE has been having, wrestling without fans. I don't know how it's been because I really haven't watched any WWE or
Trash.
UCF. Trash? Yeah, see.
Yeah, I haven't watched that since I was like 7. But anyway, I think that concludes this episode of M.O.G episode 4. Thank everybody for coming. Thank you, Billy, for being an amazing guest. Oh my
Oh,
god.
Josh, you didn't finish the
I'm
outro
dying
yet,
again.
bro.
Yo,
You didn't even finish the outro yet, bro. Come
Josh, I
on.
didn't even finish the outro yet.
30
And
more
he's silent
seconds
again.
at least. This guy.
And look, he's silent again. Fake. This is great.
Yo.
Anyway, we will catch y'all on the next one. And slight schedule change. We're doing these every 3 weeks now instead of every 2 weeks.
Yes,
It
sir.
had to get me one more time before I left, didn't it?
So be
It had to get me one more time before we had to leave.
anyway, thank you all.